is Keith Whalen from RPI Consultants, and it is with Brogdibanian excitement that I welcome you to today's webinar on Spreadsheet Server. My colleagues from Insight Software, Megan, Sue, and Sherry, are here to show you a very powerful tool that we've been working with a long time, and we think can become a great asset to your organization. Go ahead and get started with some intros. Once again, my name is Keith Whalen. I'm a partner at RPI Consultants, and I've been in the Infor space for 25 years.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sue Maloney. I'm a solutions engineering strategist at Insight Software, and I've been with the company approaching 10 years, but been in accounting and finance for much longer.
Hello, everyone. My name is Megan Carrier, based up in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Been with Insight Software for about 4.5 years now. I joined via acquisition in mid-2022, serving as our DVP North American Commercial Sales since late 2023. And today I lead a team of 8 account executives in various ERP territories, including our ERP territory for Infor. Super excited to be presenting with you all today.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sherry Puckett. I've actually been with Insight Software for 13 years. My background has been in finance, being a controller, CFO, director of FP&A, things like that in the banking industry. But work with the solutions engineering team here to create product demos, proof of concepts, and just custom solutions that meet the needs of our customers.
So I'll share a bit about Insight Software. Insight Software is the leading provider of connected solutions for the Office of the CFO. We are the acquisition engine of our private equity group with a very sharp focus on growth. Recently, we celebrated a 5-year growth rate of 425%, and we actually have 32,000 customers globally with 2,400 team members on staff. And our flagship solution, which is what we're going to be presenting to you today, is Spreadsheet Server.
Thank you, Megan. We've been working with and recommending Insight Software Solutions for 15 years. Been working with Sherry Puckett for 13 of those. The nature of our relationship is very simple. They have a good product, and we find that it fills a very important niche in the markets we play in.
But I think I said I enjoyed working with you guys for a really quick 13 years, but what we found is a ton of success in the Lawson space. And just recently I say recently, but over the past 4 to 5 years now, we've been working with the FSM clients as they've been making that move from Lawson to Infor FSM. So it's been an exciting journey and looking forward to many more years.
And I'll add, Sherry, that our customers that have adopted your solutions have been very happy with it and strong advocates for it.
Yes, absolutely. We've got a lot of referenceable customers. And to be honest, we've even had some of the customers that have been with us the entire 15-year partnership with RPI still here.
Cool. Let's talk a little bit about what we're solving for.
Yeah, for sure. So Spreadsheet Server really is going to solve the problem of your tactical financial reporting. I've been doing this a long time with people, and even before that in my accounting career. But, most everybody finds that their canned reports out of their ERP really just don't meet their needs, or they're not in the format that they need. They need information from one report and another one. They have to pull it all together. So they spend a lot of time just putting data in Excel, download, rekey, but not as much time being able to actually analyze their data, look at their information, and they don't have the ability to drill down if they have questions. So Spreadsheet Server has been able to solve that problem for actually many more years than we've been with RPI, and many more years than I've been with the company. It's been a tool that's been around and in the market since the mid-90s. It's very mature and very stable, and we find that it's very accountants love it. We used to call it back in the day crack for accountants. So that's really a long time ago. But but in any case, we find that it definitely fits that niche in the market. And what we found for sure is that even with Lawson and FSM, that it's meeting a need for customers that they don't currently have with the Infor reporting solutions.
Definitely. And if I could just add, I feel like one of the reasons it's so powerful is it meets the users where they already are with the tool they're already familiar in using, right? Which is Excel, right? So instead of giving them something different to work from or to pull data from, it just brings it right into their home field. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Megan.
I'm still here. I don't know if you can see me or not, but I'm still here. We'll zoom out a bit and we'll just explain what Spreadsheet Server is really quickly before we hop into the demo and show you what it is. So Spreadsheet Server is a reporting solution that lives on your ribbon bar in Excel, connecting Excel directly to ERP systems like Infor. So this eliminates the need for manual data dumping, time-consuming, error-prone manual data manipulation tasks, and instead delivers refreshable, reliable, and timely data, ready for analysis without the need for IT intervention, all in the familiar interface of Excel. And with that, we will move to the main event. So please feel free to enter questions in the chat. We'll address them at the end. And Sue, the floor is yours.
Yep, let me just get the right screen shared here. Okay.
We need like a drum roll sound effect.
You can see my Excel worksheet, I'm guessing, yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. Great. Thanks. So we're looking at just a sample report here that was built using Excel with Spreadsheet Server. And as Megan mentioned, you can see in my ribbon here, I have a separate component for Spreadsheet Server. Very simple add-in that gets installed wherever Excel lives for you. From there, we just start defining reports in the format that we want to see using our formulas that we deliver, along with any Excel functionality that you might like to use. I'll hover over one for a moment so you can see what that formula looks like, but don't worry too much about the structure of it because we have a little wizard button that you use to populate that formula. You don't need to understand the structure of that right out of the gate. You'll come to learn exactly what it's doing when we start building formulas. But with that formula, I can open an existing report. I can make parameter changes. In this case, I'll choose a different month, and my report refreshes automatically. If I want to filter based on a component of my general ledger, I can choose, in this case, my department code and filter out my data that way. I might choose to learn more about the balances that I'm seeing here in the report, and I can do that by using the drill down button in the ribbon. That's going to give me more information about what makes up that total. As I click the drill down button, you're going to see a panel pop up. And that panel shows me for the particular balance I selected, the 195,806 for period 9 of 2019, a listing of account distributions. These are all of the account distributions that help to make up that 195,806. And in my case, I've selected all of the accounts in my system that start with 76 for all companies and all departments. And we can do that by using those asterisk symbols. Now, as I look at this window, I might choose to do some additional filtering. Maybe I want to summarize by company or by department or even by my account code. That gives me just some additional grouping options. I can do something similar by leveraging this gray bar here at the top of my screen and just dragging and dropping and showing those results, almost like a pivot table here where I can pivot and see that information. I can choose to get additional information from these accounting distributions. I might want to know, what happened with this $5,000 in airfare for this line item. I'll go ahead and drill out to some journal details to go take a closer look at what makes up that $5,000 entry. Now I can see where that entry came from. Came from my accounts payable subledger. I can stay here within the journal entry information, or I could choose to go out to my subledger detail through the use of a query and go get additional information. Now I'm looking at the AP invoices that were processed to create that journal entry that shows up in that balance. If there'd been some images The possibility exists to go look at the images associated with the transaction. So we have a way to path out to multiple levels within a transaction. Start at the highest level balance, drill all the way out to different levels of detail that exist in the system. Now, this little box that you're seeing, the drill down box that we're working with, is just another panel in Excel. If I wanted to see that information in Excel, I can use the drill down option to go out to a worksheet. Does the same thing, it just brings it into a worksheet in my workbook. Pretty easy to work with to get that quick, easy information. Now, you can create all sorts of different reports with Spreadsheet Server. We typically start by talking about the general ledger so we can get into our financial reporting and maybe look at some different ways to present that information. Rolling 12 is a common example we see in organizations, their balance sheet. Maybe you want to create a department or a location consolidation or a crosstab of sorts. You can see that information across the columns and also drill into the details here as well. We might even maybe round up the information, show it in a little different light, maybe incorporate some other Excel functions like graphs and charts, trend lines, conditional formatting, all sorts of things that we can do with Excel along with those Spreadsheet Server formulas to go get the information we want in a way that we can simply open the workbook and refresh without having to rebuild consistently. So there's a couple ways to get reports built out. We can always start with a blank worksheet. So we'll start there. Just drop in a blank worksheet and we'll go design a report based on our formula builder. There's another option I'll take you through here in a few minutes that allows us to take advantage of any templates you might already have in Excel, which is a little bit faster way to get up and running. So with the formula builder, when I wanted to design a new report, I simply open that little button. It opens up my formula options. The top left-hand side shows me my GL formula options. Down below, there's query formulas as well. We'll address those in a bit, but the intent of those is really to focus on areas outside of the general ledger, while the GL formulas, the top two primarily, are going to give us most of the access we need for GL balances and GL details. When I open this window, it will automatically be configured to your general ledger. So we do that for every customer. Every customer has a different structure to their chart of accounts, might have different segments that they're using to capture information. And whatever those look like for you, that's what you'll see in this window. I have mine defined here, which gives me the opportunity to select a time frame and then any grouping of accounts that I might choose. So I'll go back to 2019. We'll leave that at period 4. I do have some other choices though for format. If I wanted to summarize my data by quarter to date, year to date, life to date even, or a range of periods, those are all options as well. My balance type option is set to compare budgets or actuals together. So I'll start with my actuals and bring those balances in before I approach my budget. Now that I have that middle portion set, I'm going to come down to my segments. Now I've got these 5 segments and I can really slice and dice these any way that I like. I personally like to see the company and department on a column, using that as a filter. And then I'll just focus in on my natural account here on the row. Right now it has an asterisk symbol in each one of those boxes, simply saying, show me everything. And that's going to be a bit challenging to dig through. So I'm going to start by just saying, show me everything that starts with 4. And that's going to simply bring back a balance for all of my account codes that begin with 4 and summarize that balance in one number for me. If I'm ever unsure of what to select, I have a list of values right here at my fingertips where I can go out and search by name or number to go find what I need. Once I get that configured, I'm going to first of all make sure I click this invert sign so that I show this number in a positive light since it is a credit balance. I'll click insert to go get that revenue balance and it'll drop it into my worksheet. So now you can see I went right out to the system, out to the database, through that formula, grabbed this balance based on period 4 of 2019 for all of my companies and departments where they have a balance for accounts that start with 4. Okay, that brings in my balance. I have that drill down capability right away. But if I wanted to keep building, I might just copy and paste this across and go get a bit more information. Maybe go out to look at period 5, period 6 even. Maybe I want to see this summarized year to date through period 6. I could do that. I could even do a comparison, and we'll copy this across the next couple columns to my budget for the year. And lastly, maybe I want to do a comparison to prior year. All pretty easily done. And I've got those balances here that I can view across those timelines. I can drill into any of them. And I can also use my expand feature. The expand feature is going to take a look at all of those accounts that make up the total and display them in my worksheet with the description for the account. Now that I have them here, I can drill into any of these cells to go learn more about the types of transactions that took place in that time frame. We can also just collapse this up and keep working. So number of options here to see that data and also to continue to build. This is one option where I'm using what we would call a partial mask, where I'm just saying, show me everything that starts with 4. I might choose to do something like, let's say, a range of accounts. So I'll pull in everything that falls between 4,000 and 499. Now that's should show me the same balance as above, bringing in those same totals. So I can use a range. The period separates the first and the last. I might actually take that range but exclude a value out of it. So I could also say, well, let's pull that range, but I'd also like you to remove accounts 4120 and 4130 from that range. Oh goodness, let's get my comma and my slash. Okay, so we could do something like that also. We can create a list of accounts that we want to view by putting a comma between those different accounts. We could also go look those accounts up in our locate segment button, which again gives us immediate access to our chart of accounts. As I'm in my account field, it brings up my list of values for all my accounts. I can scroll, I can search to go find what I want, and I could select here those same accounts, click insert, and it'll create that list. You can always select a single value as well, either through that locate segment or even just type that in and go get that balance. Now let me copy down my formulas a bit so we actually see those balances. And now we have those in the worksheet. Now, many of our customers have hierarchies defined inside their ledgers. Any type of groupings by accounts or even by departments or locations or such, those are also available under that locate segment button. So you can choose the groupings right from there rather than type them in if you'd prefer. So we can then continue to build, use all of our Excel functionality that we know and love to go get a report designed and get whatever formatting in place that we might like. Honestly, I think that the formatting of the report takes more time than getting the data. So that's why we usually tell customers that if you have something in Excel that can act as a template, we can show you how to bring the formulas in. We might choose to do that. I'll show you an example where we have a basic income statement defined with nothing in those cells. So even if I had numbers in there, I'm going to replace whatever was in those cells with a formula. That can be done still through the formula builder. And we're just going to go ahead and make sure that rather than overwrite the existing data, we're going to go ahead and shift it. Then we just move everything over and down so we can get in a formula and start defining it. So we'll just do the same values here for this first one's period to date. We'll leave it in period 4. Again, I'm going to move my company department in. And it looks like that first line item is looking at a range of accounts. So I'll go ahead and just populate that here. And I'll click insert to go get this dropped into my worksheet. You'll notice as I do that, it's going to take everything that's in the worksheet and just slide it over and move it down to go get that first formula. Now all I have to do is just drag it and drop that into the place that I'd like and get that balance in there. Okay, I like to move things in alignment. That's, again, a personal preference of mine. It doesn't necessarily matter if you line these up since it's just about the cell references. But I'm going to drag and drop those over get them set up so that now as I look at that formula, everything is lined up just so. I can continue to get this formatted through using my copy paste and then making some adjustments. So we'll copy and paste this across, and then we'll copy and paste it down, and then we'll go make some adjustments here. Okay, so right now I'm looking at the exact same number for all three columns. What I really want to see is period to date for column F, year to date for column G, and quarter to date for column H. So I just have to go to this format button and change that. Year to date for column G, quarter to date for column H. Now, as I continue to work through the report, all I'm going to do is just copy and paste these formulas into the rest of the cells that need them. I already have my account numbers assigned here, and so it's going to just read those automatically. And we continue to do that, follow that same process through the rest of the report, getting it defined so we have our automated report. Now, I typically take this information that's being displayed and being leveraged in the formulas and use the grouping function in Excel just to get it out of the way, keep it a little cleaner. We can use other types of parameters and filters as well to make it a little bit more user-friendly. But as we get it defined, now we have a report that's refreshable and has drill down capability. So pretty easy to work with from that standpoint. As I said, the formula builder for the general ledger is predefined for your GL. So there isn't any mapping that needs to be done to make that happen. You really just have to be able to go use the formula builder, choose that formula, and fill out the information you want to see. Now, we've spent our time talking about financial statements and GL-based reporting, which gets us a lot of great information. But oftentimes we need to go outside of the general ledger and get to our operational data as well. And Spreadsheet Server has that capability in addition to the GL functionality. We essentially just use a separate set of formulas. So maybe we want to look at AR aging, for example. When we look at a report that is using data outside of the general ledger, it's relying on a formula that looks to a query. So as I look at my AR aging, I'm looking at that aging definition by buckets. I've got some information over here, some parameters to filter by. I can always go in and change what those filters are and go look at data a little differently. Again, slicing and dicing that information. And because of those formulas, in this case being summary or summarized, I can again drill down into more details. Now I can see all of the outstanding AR invoices that make up that aging bucket. That is all due to a query that's referenced here in the formula. Now, queries give us a great way to capture data from within our systems. Oftentimes we hear from customers that they are running 2 and 3 reports and exporting them to Excel, grabbing data from different parts of that report and mushing it together into their final report. Well, essentially a query does that. A query gives you the ability to take all of those different things that you need from different places and bring it together into one layout. And then from there, you decide how you want to display it in Excel, whether it's AR, AP, sales orders, inventory, asset management, HR payroll, you name it. Anything that's inside your environment can be leveraged here inside Excel. With the query, we can pick any field that might be sitting in your database, whether it is a delivered field that you would use for many different types of transactions, or it's a custom or user-defined field that you need to see in a report. Now, when we build out reports like this, we're still going to use the formula builder. And you can see here, we've got some Excel functions here like graphs and charts as well, and a lot of colors and shading that we can take advantage of. But the premise of it are those formulas and pointing to a query to go get the data. So whether in summary with drill down or a more detailed report where we can set some parameters, filter by any number of items, run those detailed reports out and see the results here. All of those are options for creating reports using those queries. So let's take a quick peek at how we might build a report using a query. I'll go ahead and insert a new worksheet again, and we'll just recreate that AR aging. When I go to my formula builder, this time I'm going to choose a little different option. I'm going to move beyond the general ledger and head down to these query formulas. Just like the GL, I have a summary formula and I have a detail formula. So let's start with getting a summary formula. When we choose that option, it's looking for a query to use. So I'll just browse out to my folders where I store all my queries and go choose my AR aging query here to go into the report. As soon as I do that, it defaults in the sum options here, as well as a set of parameters. And these are all defined as part of that query. So as a user, I can just select those parameters, the ones that I want to see in the report, and click insert. That'll go out to the database and bring back the results based on how that query is defined and the parameters that I've selected. Now that I have that balance, you can see there's my formula. It is a summary formula, so I can still drill down if I'd like. I'm going to go ahead and just copy and paste this across and build this out a little bit further. So I'm going to just simply change my aging buckets here to go get different data. And then I might just even take advantage of some of those Excel functions. Whoops, let's get all of those columns and just insert in a pie chart. Pretty easy to work with to get that defined once you have that query in place. Now I can update some of this information so I don't have to have a separate report date in every column. The idea would be then that I could just simply change one column, everything updates. And that can happen just by updating formulas to look at the right cell, or I can quickly copy paste and make sure they're all looking at the same dates. We can do the same thing with a detailed formula, and that's just simply going to show me all of the transaction details based on the parameters in my Excel worksheet. So again, different layouts, different options there to go bring together data. That data can cross different modules. As long as there's a way to match up that data from the different modules, we can bring that together in an Excel report. Keeping in mind that the idea is that we just simply have to refresh going down the road versus having to continually rebuild any reports that exist. There's one other piece of functionality I want to make sure I show you today, and that is our distribution tool. We have the ability
I'm
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt real quick.
Sure.
We're getting lots of questions, and I just want people
Super.
to know that we have them. We're going to save them until after this, but we will address them.
Awesome. That's great to hear. Okay, let's talk about Distribution Manager, and then we'll jump over and start hitting up those questions. So Distribution Manager is a way for you to set up an automated distribution list. And you do so right inside an Excel workbook by creating a control sheet. I have one started here, so we'll use that to begin with. And then we just identify who we're sharing with and what we want to share and how we might do that. The first option here under type is, am I going to create a report in a file folder, save it to a file folder? Do I want to send it via email? Maybe I want to push it out to a printer. So I could choose email and then choose the file type that I want that folder to be, that report to be sent as. So I've got Excel defaulted in, but I could always use PDF or a text file if I need to do that. Down under the specify worksheets, I go ahead and identify which reports I want to send. I'm going to send the P&L, and I'm going to send the supporting journal detail with it. Now this is all my journal entry detail for that P&L, but before I actually choose to send it, I want to specify what information is going to be visible. I don't necessarily want the recipient to see everything about the organization, maybe just their department. So in order for me to filter that out, I reference the field that has the department code in that worksheet, and I put in their department code here. So when I go ahead and send this in a minute here, when I finish getting it all defined, it's going to send an email out with those two reports only for a specific department. So the next step is to go define who the recipient's going to be. And we'll just send this off to Sherry. So she'll get a copy of these reports. And I'll just keep this really brief here. and I'll click push to insert it into my worksheet. So what we've just done is identified a distribution line, which will send an email to Sherry with an Excel workbook attached. The Excel workbook will have 2 tabs in it, one for the P&L, one for the journal detail, but both will only be visible for Department 430. Now, we have to decide, do we want Sherry to have access to that data? Do we want her to be able to refresh on those reports and drill down into the details? Or maybe we just want her to see a static version of that, a point in time. And by setting this column F, we determine exactly what she will receive in that way. So right now it's saying she's only going to get a snapshot of that data. She will not be able to refresh and drill down. Maybe I have another recipient that is going to be responsible for a different department. So I'll update the department code. But I know that that recipient has access to Spreadsheet Server and has the ability to refresh reports. In that case, I'm going to go ahead and switch this over to no conversion. That will maintain those formulas so that they are live and refreshable whenever this individual wants to refresh those reports. So we can simply identify those here, click the distribute button to send those out. We can also leverage our scheduler tool that goes along with this and push those out on a regular basis. So you have some choices there as well as to how you choose to do that. If you want to automate it or you want to just run it on demand, press the button, it'll send an email to those individuals. Okay, I think I'm ready for some questions. What do you have, Keith?
Sure, I'll go ahead and ask a couple here. Are you saying that Spreadsheet Server can extract directly from the ERP?
Yes, in most cases, it is direct from the ERP.
And certainly in the case of Infor FSM and also Lawson. Where is the Spreadsheet Server installed?
So Spreadsheet Server gets installed locally. So you'll install it on a machine, on your local machine. And there's some configuration that has to take place to make sure that we map everything appropriately to get the connection information and security information shared. But you'll install that ribbon locally and then point to where that setup file is stored, which is typically shared on a network somewhere. That network file is leveraged for our connections to the different data sources that we might be working with.
Cool. I want to take on a couple and you just correct me, Sue.
Sue, sure. Go for it.
I think I missed something at the beginning. Is this enhancing Excel or replacing Excel? This is Excel, right? This is Excel with all its native power and functionality. And we're just adding a plugin to be able to get the ERP data straight into it. It's very cool.
Exactly right.
I noticed expenses showed with the parentheses, right, as negative. How do you make it show as positive? I'd like
Great
to try
question.
that one too. Use Excel's native formatting tools, because the big thing this is bringing to the table is the fact that you can use Excel and all its capabilities. So I don't want to steal your thunder, Sue, but I'm excited to answer some of these.
You go for it, Keith. I'm just kind of showing some things along the way while you're talking.
Cool. Let's see here. So yes, if you're interested in this tool, it is based on number of licenses, and we will put you in touch with Sue, and she can figure out what makes sense for your organization. And we feel like it is a very cost-effective tool. I have lost my scroll here. See if I can get it back. Oh, I saw it. Here we go. All right, here we go. Average implementation. Well, it used to be less than a week, right? Is that still the case?
Yeah, so typically I would say a week is pretty conservative.
Okay. So the way this used to work is basically they start from the spreadsheets you already have, right? So you already have spreadsheets where you're compiling this data, and they work to get the right formulas in there, and then you're off and running from there, right? You guys saw you can copy paste away to expand on them. All right. Regarding the sign, is it taking a sign from the native data? Yes. Debit will show as negative. Yes.
Debit will show as a positive and credit will show as a negative. But
Thank you
yeah,
very
but that's a simple switch you can flip to show the opposite. So if you notice, this is really kind of hard to see here, but right next to that @ symbol, there's a minus sign there. That is because I knew I was going to be bringing in revenue and did not want to show it in brackets. So I clicked the box to invert the sign. You can do that as an option. You can put the little minus sign in front of the formula. You can do times -1. All are options. You can do a number of different things to show that.
I think that answers the next question.
Okay.
After that, we have one that says, are the queries pre-built for further modification, or do we have to build from scratch by user?
So queries are typically built out by the customer. It doesn't mean that we can't help or assist in that, but most often queries are built by the customer accessing the different components that they need to get those designed. Queries are shared among users, so no, you don't have to have every single user in your organization creating their own queries. Most often there's 1 or 2 people in an organization that take on that responsibility, and then they save them into a folder that can be leveraged by a report builder. So when I went into my formula builder to choose that query, I actually clicked on the browse button. It brought me out to my file explorer. So when I come out here, click the browse button, now I'm in Explorer. I choose from my query folder which query I want to use. So when the person that created these queries created them, they saved them in these query folders so that I could leverage them in a report.
And thank you. And to make sure that we're not lost in semantics here, queries that Sue's speaking of are for the subledgers, right?
Correct.
So when you want to go query something from AP or somewhere else, all the GL, now I don't even want to use query, all the GL pools are native to the solution.
That is true. Yep. There's no query needed for the general ledger to get those GL balances and GL journal details.
Okay, a few more questions. Is it possible to get a copy of this presentation? So we are recording this, and this will be available. It might take us a day or two, but you'll get a follow-up email with this recording that you can then share with others in your organization. Yes, for licensing, that's something I'll defer to Sue on. We will put you in touch. And how easy, or I guess difficult, is it to build a query? Is that something you guys help?
So we can certainly help. I think the hardest thing about building a query is knowing where to find your data. And if you have some basic understanding as to where the data sits in your tables, then it's not terribly difficult. You can create a query by looking at individual tables. You can build a query by writing a SQL statement or pulling a SQL statement. All are options when you're going to design that query. But essentially, you pick and choose what fields you want from various tables to bring together into one report. Most often, there's at least 1 or 2 people in an organization that have some understanding of the table structure or know where to find some of that data. So they're typically the folks that take on that responsibility. Not in every case, of course, but it's usually helpful to know the data structure.
I have one that I skipped earlier. How would one use it with Infor FSM Cloud Suite? Is this similar to BI FSM? I would say it can do some of the things that BI FSM does, but it's a lot more flexible because you're in Excel, right? So you can switch what those parameters are that you are. I keep coming back to the term querying, but that are defining the data sets that you're looking at. And obviously there's the formatting and graphing functionality that is, very advanced. So this one, I think it's 2 parts here. You say this is installed on a workstation and talks to the server. How does that work with the cloud solution? I'd like to first, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. The data set is a replication set of your FSM cloud data, and it replicates once an hour. but can also be done on demand. So that's what it's plugged into, right? As far as how that connects with Insight Software's cloud, I guess I'll defer to you guys.
Yeah, you're right. We replicate to a hosted database that we host in our cloud, and we point Spreadsheet Server to where that replicated data is in the cloud. So it's a pretty seamless configuration and setup. Once it's done, most often people pay no attention to it, don't even realize that it's happening because it does run automatically for you. And if you're inside a worksheet and you know that data has been updated, you just click a button to refresh the worksheet to bring in any updated information that's taken place since the last time you did so.
Cool. I think that wraps up for our questions, but I want to add a little bit of color here, if I may, because I think it's an undercurrent of some of these, and that is ease of adoption, right? So as we went from on-premise solutions, whereas our field, Crystal was pretty prevalent, to some of these cloud-based solutions that had different tools, what we found is we found ourselves doing a lot of reporting services work because the tools themselves were not very user-friendly and intuitive. And so it required, sort of very specialized skills to produce reports that customers were looking for. We never do Spreadsheet Server services. I mean, really, we're referring them because we think it's a good solution that people are going to be happy with, but customers inevitably adopt it themselves and are able to run with it. This is not a big learning curve to take on. More questions, if that's okay. Do you have one replication set for every query? That's a good question.
Sherry, you want to help me with that? I'm not sure I quite understand that question.
Yeah, so think of the query is actually written against a PostgreSQL database. Each business class, you can pick and choose which fields that you replicate. They go to a table. The table is named the same as the business class. From there, with our query tool, you have the ability to join the business classes together to create the queries and things that you want. For general ledger, we use general ledger total, GL transaction detail. If you're using accounts payable, then we're going to use payables invoice payment, things like that. So hopefully that makes sense, but the replication set information would be the same details that you would see with your Infor add-in. I think it's called
Yes.
spreadsheet
Designer
something.
now, yeah.
Exactly. And so you would be able to see that same data, but what we're doing is replicating it so that Spreadsheet Server can communicate with it.
But technically it's one replication set and the query is building joins off of that one replication set.
Yes, exactly. So we have one replication, we'll call it job, that goes and grabs from the different business classes and creates separate tables in our database. So you have the ability to, whichever business class that you'd like to be able to replicate, you can use the replication set functionality out of Infor to bring the data over into our database as a table. From there, you query that table just like you would if you were in your, Oracle or SQL Server database for Lawson, for example.
Okay. We got a lot of questions here. We might have to just have a follow-up
Yeah, I think so.
offline, but this is pre-built integration, right? So the queries themselves, you're building off a replication set that Insight Software already has with Infor, with the standard Infor set of business classes. And again, we can follow up in more detail there. Well, I think it's time to wrap it up. I want to thank Megan, Sue, and Sherry for spending some time with us today, and all of you for attending. I hope this was well worth your time. Have a great afternoon.